Welcome back to Monday Special. The topic tonight is alcoholism, and you can tell us about your experiences or questions you may have on our SMS platform 22422 or on Twitter using the hashtag Monday Special KE. Some of the texts here. This is one, anonymous. Most rehab centers are very expensive, making them out of reach for the average Kenyan. Is NACADA able to help in any way?
Thank you very much. We are very aware that there are barriers to access to treatment and rehabilitation centers. Across the country, almost 95% of all treatment and rehabilitation facilities are privately owned. So what is NACADA doing? One is that we are trying to catalyze the public sector, particularly the Ministry of Health and county governments, because now the county governments have to take this as a responsibility to ensure that their communities access these facilities. So in the public sector, we are putting in funds. For example, in the Coast, at the Coast General Hospital, we have put in about 4 million Kenya shillings as a catalyst to rehabilitate some of the facilities to ensure that communities access these services. We have done the same at the Moi Referral Hospital in Rift Valley. And we want to do, in this financial year, we want to do the same in Western Kenya, where Nyanza and Western combined, accessibility to these facilities is very rare. But on the other hand, accessibility in terms of cost, we have been working and discussing with the insurance companies so that they can cover addiction as a disease. Many of the insurance companies in the health sector would not cover addiction. And therefore, for example, the National Hospital Insurance Fund now covers addiction as one of the diseases. So there are activities that we are doing to ensure that there's success.
Which brings me to the next question by Esther here. She says, I personally sent my alcoholic brother to a rehab, but he relapsed after 2 weeks. It was expensive and I felt discouraged. How can he be helped? He lost his job and my family, and now he's a bother to our aging parents. The question there is, the rehab centers, is it the answer to addiction? Let me start with the doctor.
Yeah, actually we say alcoholism is a chronic disease. And even when one is leaving rehab, we usually sensitize them that once in a while they might relapse, once in a while they might go down. And the fact that you relapse, you should not give up. So it's a chronic disease. That's why my colleague here said that he's still an alcoholic, even though it's so many years when he has stayed clean. So when somebody relapses, that should not be a reason to give up. But of course, we don't just discharge them from a rehab and leave them alone. We have meetings, we have support centers. Each person is supposed to have a sponsor. You need to have follow-up. We tell them to identify their triggers such that we know their external triggers, which like the site of the bar you used to drink from, the friends you used to drink with, their internal triggers like boredom, like stress. So we also teach them to identify that, but they need to realize that it's a chronic disease, which you can't just say, I've completed my rehab, I'm now well, I can move on with life. You need follow-up.
Right.
Yes.
But is rehab in itself the answer to this? And, of course, bearing in mind that the cost implications are not everyone can afford to go for rehabilitation.
Okay. Incidentally, we're saying there are some free rehabs. Because they are supported by, actually, UNODC, I think it's also a program with NACADA, where they're outpatient. But let's remove that word rehab, okay? Because rehab brings to mind inpatient and whatever. Let's say these are programs for one to realize what their problem is. The way we operate, we start with the families. Because as I would put it, any human being, you know, whenever any human being you want behavior change, you have to show him what's in it for me. What do I benefit? So bottom line, start with the family, okay? And I'll use my own example. When I'm arrested, I'm walking without an ID at night, I'm singing, we're club hopping. I'm arrested, I call my mom. I get somebody to call my mom. My mom calls the police station. Why have you arrested my son? Did he commit a crime? Just drinking, you don't have better work to do. I'm released. So what do I learn from that? That if, you know, I now won't be arrested, so I'm telling people if you walk with me, you won't be arrested, but I'm charging you a small fee. So my mom has given me another revenue stream to buy alcohol. So everybody concentrates on the addict, telling you you need to stop, you need to go to a rehab. Now, if you start with the people who are facilitating or enabling my continued drinking, the family, to show the family first, this is what you're dealing with, and this is the way to go about it. You then come up with a plan to tackle the addict, so that the addict is the one who says, I've now understood my problem, what do we need to do next? Mm-hmm. So that way, when they go into whatever program, whether it's an inpatient, outpatient, as Daktari is saying, AA, or counseling, the fellow has the desire to change this behavior. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, treatment is cheaper than not treating. Because just look at, if you have an addict, how much you're spending per day, things which they have stolen, spoiled, blah, blah, blah.
Did your brother go for rehab? Did you ever take him to rehab?
Not yet, but he had a session with Mr. David. For him to understand that he needs it, it's a process. One, accepting. So for him, he didn't get to a point of accepting that I am in need and I need help.
And that brings me to the next question, which people are also asking. What are the signs then of an alcoholic? When do you know that you can't live without alcohol when you drink alcohol?
Okay, basically it starts by finding that you need more alcohol than you used to before to get high. For example, you used to take 2 beers, now you have to take 4. Now you even resort to more concentrated alcohols like spirits or wines or changa. Most people will graduate to changa because it's affordable. So when you find that you need more than you used to take, again, when you find that when you are not drunk, you get sick, like you get shakes, tremors, you get, some people even convulse, like they have epilepsy. Some people even go into coma when they are withdrawing. So when you find that in the morning, you have to take what we call an eye opener to be able to function. You can't go to work unless you've taken alcohol. Then that is a warning sign that you're addicted. Again, when you find that alcoholism is affecting your family life, it's affecting your career work, then you need to realize. But just like I said in the beginning, alcohol abuse is a whole spectrum. We should not just concentrate at the addiction, which is the severe, severest. Yeah. We realize that even what we call moderate drinking has effects on our health, binge drinking has effect on our health, and the worst of all, which is addiction, which can result to liver disease, which can affect all the systems of the body, and eventually can even cause sudden death, is actually the severest. Right. So we should aim at preventing alcoholism altogether. Yes. From people from taking alcohol altogether. Yes. And even those who drink moderately need to realize that even that moderate is not safe.
There are some who talk about moderate drinking. Yes. Some say you can drink responsibly and control it. Is that something that is true? And how much is too much then, if that is true?
Yes, we know that when we talk of moderate drinking, we say for a woman they should take 1 drink per day. 1 drink means different things for different forms of alcohol. If it's spirit, it's just a tot of 44 mLs. If it's a beer, it's one beer of 350 mLs. If it's wine, it's 1 glass of wine of about 250 mLs. Now, when it comes to men, they are allowed at least 2 drinks, which is like 2 beers, like 2 glasses of wine, and like 2 tots of spirits. People really do that. When people sit, they drink a lot of alcohol, more than what I have said. But again, we are also saying anyone who is abstaining from alcohol shouldn't drink that moderate. We should realize that even that moderate drinking can predispose you to cancers, can predispose you to increased rates of accidents. And we would advocate that for those who must drink, they should do it moderately. But for those who can abstain, then that is even better.
Yeah, what Dr. is talking about is the units, 4 for men, 2 for women. However, when you are using, I like the word you are using, responsible drinking, that is actually language of brewers. So they say, you know, if David got drunk responsibly, there would be no problem. Alcohol has no problem. Okay, the oxymoron here, and I usually say this, alcohol doesn't cause alcoholism, but it will then trigger a disease you are with. When we're talking about symptoms, I would even go before you even drink. You decide, okay, I'm 18, the law allows me to drink. Before you take that drink, I would look at your family history. Mother's side, father's side. Has there been a history or problems with alcohol, and that would be a first indicator that you are probably predisposed to alcoholism before you even start. However, the other problem we get is there's a lot of emotions in this whole discussion of drugs, especially alcohol, ranging from people should not drink alcohol altogether to stop being a nanny state and everything in between. So if we could first get the emotions out of this, if you're an adult, who the law in this country says if you're 18, though I feel it should be 21, and there are scientific reasons for that, but since it's 18, the law allows you to drink and you decide to consume alcoholic beverages, how can we keep you consuming them at a rate that you do no harm to yourself and others? Okay? And then what programs do we have in place for people who are, like Dr. talked about, binge drinking, to educate people that binge drinking is not helpful. This is where it's heading you to. Again, signs that people can see easily, that if you are drinking like this, somebody can easily tell you, boss, because of this, you are heading.
You talk of programs, and that is again where NACADA could come in, including, do we have maximum alcoholic content level that we look at in this country? And do we know what kind of drinks should be sold and which ones should not be in the market?
Now, let me go back to start with the programs. I think the question you raised about treatment and rehabilitation, is that the solution? I think it is not a solution, because even after treatment and rehabilitation, after the maximum time people are supposed to be there going through the treatment, we then need to deal with the issues of placement in the community. These people need to be skilled so that they can become productive when they get back to communities. And that calls for a broader issue of employment opportunities. Getting back to issues of programs, we need to have very focused programs that look at young people. And for NACADA, this fiscal year, for example, we are focused to work with young people. All the institutions that work with young people, like the National Youth Service, the Boy Scout Association, the National Women's and Young Men's Associations, so that we can reach out to these young people. Beyond that, there are programs that are specific on peer education and so on that we promote.
Okay. I was asking about maximum alcohol content level. We have such, and we know some drinks that should be abolished altogether, and which ones should be sold in this country?
The Kenya Bureau of Standards is the legal entity that sets the various standards for various drinks in this country. And we have drinks for beers, standards for beers, standards even for changa. We have very specific calibration of this. And there is constantly, as NACADA, we take samples from the various manufacturers. For example, last month, we took 264 samples across the country to look at adulterants, to look at the alcoholic content, and to look at the compliance to the law.
So do we have a ceiling?
We have, for example, let me take, for example, beers like Tusker. Tusker is supposed to have a 4.2 alcoholic content. So each one of the various drinks has its ceiling set by the Kenya Bureau of Standards.
Which works together with NACADA, that's what you're saying?
Works together with NACADA, works together with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Health.
So we are not aware of a maximum alcohol content level for any drink, or it depends with the drink?
Depends on the drink, depends on the brand. For example, most of the brandies would have a maximum volume of about 43%. Anything that goes beyond that becomes toxic. Most of the alcohol has ethanol, which is the alcohol. If you find methanol, then it is adulterated, and it is this methanol that kills people, that sends them blind, and so on. So there is maximum for each brand. And as NACADA, this is one area that we want to make sure that it complies. And there is, from next year, we are going to have the registration of all these alcoholic drinks, so that we register.
Do we have that now?
Right now we have, but we have not actually started sampling and demanding from all the manufacturers. It is legal, and it is a process which we are starting by next month.
Are you satisfied with such regulations?
Yeah, there are sides, places where civil society can't go. Well, shouldn't even go. Government sets policy. This is what is happening. You know, with liberalization, everybody became a brewer. You just buy the nature spirits, chuck in a flavor, call it whatever you want to call it, and you know, you can actually make your company from morning by evening. You have a product on the market, a lot of which is not healthy. My thing was when Changa went legal, when Changa was made legal, but the structures are not put in place. My question then became, what do you do with the Changa brewers? I'll give an example of the police, the ones who leave the service. They have all this training floating out there. We need to know where they are. So you have your brewers out there, Changa distillers, and there are ways which they could be mopped up and put in a process where they're making some kind of liquor which is not harmful, tested, sold to the government. You know how people buy milk at a certain point, and then the government distributes it, and it's done in a way where you get more selling it to the government, who then sells it, because if we are looking at a right to drink, if I cannot afford an expensive alcohol brand, beverage, what is there which is safe? Because the majority are still drinking illicit and stuff,
right.
So the checking of the thing is in the right direction.
Okay,
yeah.
We have to wind up the show now. I'm going to give you like 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds, that you give me your final comments. Let me start with you, Doctor.
Okay, probably I would want to tell Kenyans that there are people who should not drink at all, like pregnant women, because we know when you take alcohol when you're pregnant, it will affect the unborn baby, and they'll be born with some malformations. Again, people who are under 18 should not be drinking. People who have been diagnosed to have alcohol addiction cannot be social drinkers. So if you've been to a rehab or you've been diagnosed to be dependent on alcohol, you cannot say now today I'll just drink two. You will end up going back where you came from. So again, if you have a problem of alcoholism, you should not be drinking. And people with medical problems, people on drugs, need to check with the drugs they are taking how they interact with the alcohol.
Okay.
Yes.
What I would ask for, and it's good that CEO is here, is greater integration of recovering persons, those affected by addiction, who are out there, who have now come out that this is the work they want to do, and all over you are finding, whether it's disability, whether it's women's issues, gender issues, etc., there's integration. What we are saying, nothing for us without us, like the people you showed on the piece earlier. All those are recovering addicts. Some have set up rehabs, etc. So this is the only way government can get to the ground.
Very briefly with the response to that.
Thank you. I think we are already doing this. This financial year we have spent 100 million shillings to civil society organizations. We also work very closely with the recovering addicts and addicts themselves through sharing of really life experiences like we have seen here. We are also moving to strengthen the capacity of institutions, especially within the counties, and ensuring that those who are experienced and those real life experiences play a major role, because they speak more powerfully than any one of us.
My greatest plea would go to the Ministry of Education and NACADA. If we can incorporate the two, that we bring up the young men and women when they are tender, fill in the information, let them know the pro and the advantage and disadvantage of this thing. These people will grow up. It is stated, bring up a child in the way they should go. And even when they are old, in their old age, these morals will never depart from them. It is better to prevent than to cure. Yes, we can have strategies on how we can treat them that are already in it. But for the later generation that is coming in, can we have a method or a way that you can make this awareness? We don't build the curiosity, but let them know so that they get to know how to prevent it. Okay. That's my great plea.
Wonderful. That is Rachel Ngurukie, who is a sister to Nadik. Thank you very much.
CEO
of NACADA, Dr. William Okedi. Of course, David Ogot was an alcoholic, now works on awareness and Dr. Catherine Mutisia, a psychiatrist. Thank you very much, all of you, for making time for us on Monday Special. And thank you very much for watching and sending us your comments on 2242 and on Twitter. That has been Monday Special. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.